Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love guys. Now today's first story comes from Notmovingin from the True Off My Chest subreddit and says, my boyfriend and I were supposed to move in together. 2 weeks ago, he bought an 87k truck without telling me. I refused to move in with him. I'm very annoyed. He didn't even speak to me about it. We had so many discussions about moving in together, getting married, and then he goes and purchases a truck 2k more than his yearly salary. If you're asking how a truck can be 87k, that's the price you get when you put every addition you want on it. He showed me the truck expecting me to be excited, and I was livid. When he bought this truck, we were only a month from moving in together. We got into a bad argument where he told me it was his money and he could do whatever he wanted with it. So I said fine, and I told him I'm not comfortable with moving in with him anymore. I asked my landlord if my apartment was still available and if I could renew my lease, and they said yes. Now my boyfriend is saying he can't afford his place and this truck. I don't feel bad. You should have thought of that before buying something so expensive without talking to your girlfriend of 2 years. I had some of his friends' girlfriends reach out to me and say that I should support him, and one even said that I'm not loyal and this shows I wouldn't support him if we were married since I run away when finances get bad. That's bullshit. He didn't lose his job or get hurt, he bought an expensive item without discussing it. I've been trying to get him to return the truck because it's already affecting his finances badly. He has only had this truck for 2 weeks and he's worried that in the next month or two, he won't be able to cover all expenses he usually has. This past weekend, we had another argument. I think our relationship is going to end. I'm not helping him pay for this truck and I'm not moving in with him. I have asked for a break and will be thinking about what to do. Edit. I appreciate the different opinions everyone has given me. I have a lot to think about. To answer 2 questions, no, he doesn't need the truck. He works from home, and if he has to check in at work, he has an office. Also, his friends and their girlfriends know about this issue because he asked for their views when he went to a get-together last week. Only 2 girlfriends reached out to me to tell me I wasn't being supportive. The others have minded their business. I'm always shocked at other people's reactions, people getting in touch with you and telling you that you're not being supportive and that you're running away when finances get bad. But there's a big difference between, so like you said, someone losing their job or getting hurt and not being able to contribute because they can't work or something along those lines, compared to spending money you don't have and then expecting your partner to front the bill for everything else. And you're not being controlling or anything like that. You're concerned about the finances and you're going to be fronting the cost of those. When you're moving in together, your finances are going to mingle, so it's going to affect you in the long term, and it just feels like he's expecting you to front the costs after he's bought this huge expensive truck, which I'm sure there's going to be other costs associated with it, insurance, I don't know if they got big ass tires on these things or not, all of it which doesn't sound very cheap at all. So why would you want to move in with someone who isn't financially responsible? They're just going to bring you down at the same time. But AQ says, good job recognizing a bad situation when you see one. This dude fully expected you to supplement his lifestyle after moving in together. All his money would have gone to paying for that truck, leaving you stuck with a lion's share of the bills. And that's why he's panicking now. Stay in your own apartment, OP. No body, no crime says and replies to that and says, and he had the audacity to say that it was his money and he could do what he wanted with it, knowing full well he would have to live out of the truck if OP didn't supplement for him. Really tells you what he thinks about OP's money, that it's his money too. Entitled ass. I would dump him so hard. Nicholson's girl says, in quotes, when finances get bad, and says, must really mean you won't foot the bill when he is irresponsible and makes bad financial decisions. It is his money, but he is already struggling to afford things now. If for some reason he's unable to work, he will not only expect you to pay for his portion of the bills, but also his hefty truck payment. Do not move in and do not combine incomes with him. He's shown he is impulsive and has issues with his reckless spending. Shame the devil says the minute he was expecting you to help finance his life, it ceased to be his money. You absolutely did the right thing. That man was going to use you to pay for his expensive ass truck. Ask your friends' girlfriends if they want to give up their life to finance his mistakes, because you sure as hell won't, and you shouldn't. It'll only get worse if you enable him. He'd be coming home with a Ferrari next. And one more comment from the Radium Girl, who says, I had an ex do the same thing. He bought a $60,000 truck on the morning we were supposed to sign the contract for our new apartment. The insurance alone was $700 a month. So I kept the apartment I already had and stupidly let him move in with me. Even more foolish, I authorized him on my credit cards eventually. His truck ended up getting repossessed and I ended up $10,000 in debt from the cards he used and wouldn't pay. I wish I had been as smart as you are. Good for you, but not letting him suck you into this pit of irresponsibility. Edit. Insurance was this cost in 2006 for him. He was 21. He got a DUI at 17 after he drunkenly crashed a car. He lost his license for 2 years and never had an insurance policy of his own. So OP did come back into the post to update and says, yeah. So I broke up with him mainly because I realized we aren't financially compatible. Before I go into what happened, I do want to say something. I understand we weren't married, but we were both moving together into a new place and had several discussions about this move and our plans for the future, including marriage. The people private messaging me saying it's his money and he can do whatever he wants, or you're only 2 years into a relationship, you're not a wife. I know that, and I have never asked what his bank account or told him what to do financially. I'm aware it's his money, but I also know his financial situation, and he was making decisions without my input that, if we were to stay together, would not only affect him, but also our relationship and our financial situation for years to come. I will die on this hill. This is not okay, and if it's okay for you, that's fine, but for me, if we're making a financial plan and you make a huge decision without me, I won't be okay with it, and that's a big reason why I backed out of moving into a new apartment with him. I would never have made a decision like this without his input at all. The main reason why we decided to move in together was to take the next step in our relationship, but also to pay down our debts. I have now a $22,000 debt from student loans and a car. When I met him though, it was around $60,000 and I was basically living on credit cards. Within the first couple of months of us dating, I saw how hard he worked, and with a salary at $85,000, he was making huge progress in paying off his loans and credit cards. On my end at the time, I was only making $50,000. I honestly saw his work ethic and was like, wow, and got serious about my debt. I got a second part-time job where I was making $32,000 a year, bringing my salary to $82,000. I did that so I could pay off my debts faster, but also so we could be on equal footing when we moved in together. And he didn't have to pay significantly more in living expenses than me when he had more debt. We did a complete budget months before we moved in together and realized that we would each have about $700 extra a month to put towards our own individual budgets. This is why the purchase of this truck was so surprising to me. We had planned this move for months. We had a budget and he destroyed that plan with the truck. If he wanted a new car, there were plenty of cars he could have gotten that would have fit into the $700 monthly surplus he had. Anyway, the past few days before we broke up, he tried to show me that this truck was a good financial purchase and we could still move in together. He told me that he'd actually budgeted for this and could show me how he could afford this. I wanted to hear him out, so I went to his place and he had 2 budgets. He said he'd been thinking of getting this truck for some time and had worked out a budget beforehand. He showed me the first budget, and after his truck, insurance expenses, and his debts, he was left with $115 for the month. I noticed with the first budget, he didn't include groceries, his hobbies, going out, or even gas for his car. I asked him how $115 was enough to live off for an entire month. I asked him how he could afford all of this and his truck, and if he planned to give up some things. He said no, he didn't plan to give up anything, and that he could make everything work in his budget. I asked him what if he had an emergency or needed gas for his truck, and he just kept saying he would work it out without explaining how. After I saw the first budget, I asked to see the documents for the car, and that's how I found out the truck price was $95,000 total after taxes, registration and fees. He traded his reliable 2003 Toyota and all his savings to get a loan at 14% for 72 months. His monthly payment is now $1,966 and insurance $573. He also still has student loans which are significant. I kept telling him $115 left over monthly wasn't enough. That's when he showed me his second budget, which had a combined higher monthly income. I asked him if he was getting a second job, and he said due to his job relying on him to be on call, he couldn't. I asked where the income was coming from, and this man said, "Well, you're getting a raise soon." I froze because I had mentioned this raise once months ago. My first job is my career job, and I work in a field where when you hit certain milestones, you get a pay bump. In September, if my raise is approved, I will go from 50k to 80k, and with my second job, my total yearly income will be 112k. Getting the raise isn't a guarantee. You have to meet certain criteria, and if you don't, you have to wait 3 months before trying again. When he said that, I was quiet, and then I said, "So you planned a budget that included additional income that I wouldn't get for at least 6 months, an income that I might not even get in September." He said when I got my raise, the ratio of what he would pay would decrease and he would have more disposable income. I asked him why it was okay for him to plan budgets with my income but yet had no say in how he spent his. He couldn't answer that. I told him I had no issue with paying more bills if I got a raise, but the fact that he banked on that, didn't discuss it, and now expects me to be okay with this is ridiculous. I also said there's no way I wouldn't be paying more with the first budget because he wouldn't have been able to survive on $115. I told him he didn't communicate and this is on him because he made a huge financial plans without discussing anything. Finally, I told him I would never have done any of this without going to him first because I thought we were a team that was building something. I ended things the next day and he's been trying to reach out but I'm not interested. He's financially crippled himself with this truck. If with my income now he could barely make it, he sure isn't making it on his own. I really hope that things work out for him and he's able to keep his truck and recover, but I'm not paying the consequences for such a massive financial mistake that is going to hugely affect him for years to come. If I were to stay, this financial decision affects me as well and would continue to affect both of us for years. Again, this is different from becoming ill or losing a job. He chose this and refuses to budge and fix it. I now realize we're not financially compatible, and that's okay, and I wish him the best. Edit. Thanks everyone for all the support. I don't hate my ex, and I really hope he's able to recover from this. It was such a learning lesson for me in how one mistake can ruin you financially. It has made me even more cautious, but also determined to keep working towards a better financial future for myself. $115 a month, and that's just to get by. And that's like without going out on dates and stuff. It just feels like everything was aimed, well, it was sort of confirmed at the same time, wasn't it? He was relying on her getting a pay raise, and he made a huge financial decision based on that as well. I hope he handled it pretty calmly, I thought, at the same time. I'd be pretty pissed off if someone told me, "Oh yeah, I was relying on you getting a pay raise, that's why I just bought this 87k truck." But a couple of comments after that one. Uber Geek says, "You are very smart. I have a wife like you and we're going to retire comfortably because of that." Frugal Living is an Art says, "People who will give her grief over this either have no idea how marriage is supposed to work or are bad with their finances. Financial incompatibility is a huge deal in relationships and she is being incredibly mature here." And a final comment from Is a Water Bottle who says, "All I have to ask is, how are you handling this with so much grace? I would be pissed if my ex, who I was emotionally invested in, pulled this on me. It's not just that he made an irresponsible decision. It's the fact that he thought he could leech off of you and your money to pay it and somehow blindside you to get away with that. You didn't badmouth him a single time and did the right thing immediately. Break up. And I've already accepted that you both are incompatible. I'm in awe of how decisive and yet non-aggressive you were. I wish I could be that way." Opie says, "To answer your question about why I'm not badmouthing him, it's because I'm sad. I'm sad about what he did to himself and that I had to leave because he isn't seeing how bad this is. I'm sad that just a few months ago I was planning us living together and a life, and now that's gone. Most of all, I'm sad for him. He was doing so well and he rubbed off on me immensely in terms of paying off debt and watching your spending. I'm sad that he threw away all his hard work. Dumping on him even more isn't worth it because when he realizes this mistake, it'll be so bad for him. I don't see a point to do it, but I'm not judging anyone who would in these circumstances." And there was a couple of comments like just saying, you can't tell him how to spend his money. I just, did they read the update? Like he was planning to live off her finances as well. I just like face palm. Anyway, what do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Let's move on to another story. And our next story comes from the Today I Messed Up subreddit from Scott'sTots94, who says, "Today I messed up for thinking I've been laid off for 2 months." Okay, I'm honestly still trying to figure out what the hell is going on at the moment, but here it goes. For some context, I worked remote for kind of a large 3PL/consulting company that merged with another company not too long ago. So things have been a shit show over the last year, to say the least. My role is kind of niche. I work almost directly with my clients, don't technically have a boss, thus we have little oversight. Back at the end of January, I received an ominous Teams link on a Friday afternoon, urging me to jump on. I already knew it was a layoff. Luckily, I've seen it coming for a few months, as the account I worked with was struggling financially, as were many of my other clients. I had done a final interview for a new job and had an offer on the table already, so no sweat off my back. After going through the whole song and dance on the call with about 50 other people, they announced that they would pay out 3 months severance paid out bi-weekly and allow us to finish the last few days of the month. Kind of a good deal for me since I was already lined up for a new job, so I'm basically copping an extra few paychecks on top of getting a better job. So I said goodbye to my colleagues and clients over the next few days, sent my laptop back, went on a little impromptu vacation for a big golf tournament, and started my new job a few weeks later. A few odd things happened during that time. I never technically received the separation letter, just all of the email instructions and acknowledgements, but the checks were clearing, so I didn't care. I kept getting calls and texts asking about my progress on XYZ project and things like that. Just assumed it was a mix-up. Fast forward to this morning. I get this kind of nasty gram call from an HR manager, and she starts with, "Hi, you're 2 weeks behind on XYZ required annual training. This is a mandatory item that must be completed on a yearly basis without exception. You haven't responded to my multiple requests to complete. Why?" I responded, "Oh, I'm no longer with the firm. I was part of the layoffs. You must still have me on the compliance list." To which she replies, "No, you weren't. What do you mean? Did you leave the company?" After going back and forth trying to explain to her, she stops and says, "Oh, fuck," and says she will call me back. Turns out I wasn't laid off. What I guess happened is that someone else with the same last name and their first name is the same as my middle name, which I go by a variation of, and they added me to the list, which I don't understand how they didn't get caught, especially since the other guy in a completely different apartment knew. Even more so, it blows my mind it took them almost 2 months to realize I wasn't even working there. My clients didn't know any better, but it's almost laughable they managed to fuck up that bad. Lol. No idea what I'm supposed to do from here. A couple of comments with replies. So Fishy says, "That's insane. I'm in HR, have handled multiple large layoffs and have never encountered that big of a screw up from a company. Whatever you do not do or say anything that would agree you left the job voluntarily. You did not resign. Do not make it easy for them to go back on what was communicated to you about receiving severance and for how long." Opie says thanks for the advice. It actually blew my mind how many consecutive mistakes and oversights actually had to happen for this to go unnoticed for so long. I mean, yes, my role was very niche and obscure, but it astounds me that this could actually occur or nobody thought to ask, "Hey, why did you send your company laptop back?" Queen of Elves says, "I used to do remote IT support and handled a layoff once, and I was given a list of names so I knew who all I should expect their computers from, which I assumed is pretty standard. So either HR screwed up and gave them your name, or IT didn't notice they got an extra computer. Either way, it's crazy. Really hope you don't have to pay the severance back. The same company I mentioned earlier paid me extra for like a year. HR mistake and made me pay it back across a period of 3 months. It was a small enough amount each check that I didn't notice, but big enough that it hurt paying it back." Next commenter says, "Warning, keep that money around, as you were not laid off. You didn't get a severance package. The HR and payroll, you were getting paid as though you still worked there. There is a potential chance they come back to you to make you pay that money back, all the way back to your last days of work." Opie says, "That's actually what I'm worried about, that they may try to get me for job abandonment, and since I stopped working, but under the pretense I thought I didn't work there. The only thing that really helps is the fact that I do have records of the emails and acknowledgements that I can say it's reasonable assumption I was laid off." And Pizza Emergency says, "With what he has now, HR/legal will fold up like a crisp pair of jeans. It's less money to eat the 3-month salary than to fight this in court. The company will take their lumps and most likely not learn a thing from the situation. Now, OP's first update says, HR manager called me back saying we'd have a call at 11 to properly sort this out the right way together, and went full professional mode this time. Very intrigued to see how this goes. I consulted a lawyer friend of mine whose advice very much echoed many of the things you said on here, and that I should say as little as possible, and that my responses should be more of, I don't know, tell me what happened, as opposed to giving any interpretation from my end. My plan is this. If they ask, I'll tell them I'd love to have my position back and leave out the fact that I'm already working another job. In the case they do bring me back, I'll just work both concurrently for a bit as I'm still training and haven't been assigned to an account officially at my new company. I'll just wait for things to cool off before I put in actual notice. Others have mentioned working multiple jobs. Long term, I can't do that. While the company I worked for didn't know I was gone, the client would figure it out pretty quickly if I wasn't present, and I do pretty intensive work for them, so it's not viable long term. Update 2. They owned up to the mistake and no harm. Thank Jesus. But they want to bring me back to the firm like nothing ever happened. From what I could garner listening between the lines, they realized their biggest issue isn't what happened to me, but the fact the client is still being billed for an unmanaged aspect of the project, as they so eloquently put it. So I'm pretty sure their goal is to put me back on the account in a different place, as if I was there the whole time and not let the client figure that out. Which I don't feel comfortable doing because I'm sure I'll have to sign some NDA regardless for this. Fucking wild, lol. I'm not sure if it's a good idea or not, but if I was OP, if that other job is good, I might be taking that one on. It sounds like a shit show waiting. Well, that's kind of already happened, isn't it? But Tiggo says, I had a similar thing happen to me. I quit a job and they forgot to take me off the payroll for like 2 to 3 pay periods. They tried to ask for the money back and I was willing to comply. When I mentioned the tax implications, I'd be paying back 401k contributions, etc, etc. And they eventually calculated that they'd only save about $1,000 and just said to consider it a gift. User says should have just done the training. And I Know Stuff says right, he could have gotten another 3 months of severance before anyone noticed again. Hilarious that the only thing they noticed he wasn't doing was corporate training. And I was surprised with the amount of people that saying a similar thing has happened to them. I'm like, what the fuck, dudes? Anyway, what do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in today's stories. Your love, your support, your time always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so, so much. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.
Yeah, man, I remember being so naive when life was good, weather and palm trees. Back in the day, you were everything I need. But then along came a time when you crushed my dreams. Oh yeah, you played me like a fool when you made me believe that the line between love wasn't thick enough to read. Oh yeah, you see we in despair, crime everywhere. You're selling false hope cause you just don't care. Nah, you just don't care.